So this is all a little bit weird. Is this Elon being Elon again, or what's happening here?
Oh, for sure, there are like a billion personal conflicts here in terms of his own AI software, and probably also a lot of.
Hey everyone, this is Heine Zachariasen here. Welcome to Founders Weekly, where we cover the news for founders and tell stories we can learn from every single week. Today we are talking about Bitcoin at an all-time high, TikTok ban, and the fight between the founders of OpenAI, plus some AI regulation in Europe. We also have a guest on that will tell a different story about Y Combinator, what happens if you get on Y Combinator and you don't raise any funding. My co-host today is Thijs Sunnego, Vivino co-founder and a good friend. Thijs, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Heine. Happy to be here.
How about that Starship launch? We're not going to spend time on that, but how about that?
Ooh, yeah. Exciting. Wait, did it happen already?
You didn't see it. It just happened an hour ago.
Oh my God, I was in a board meeting for 2 hours.
For this podcast.
Yeah, no, not at all. I was in a board meeting for 2 hours, very secret, and I did not have time to watch it. So what? Did it explode? What happened?
No, it's in space right now. It's live in space. It went all the way.
Oh my God. I did not have my money on that,
That's
actually.
all I got.
That's amazing. I did not have my money on that. I thought it would be a third explosion. I just hoped that they would explode at a different time than what they had, because it's a bit like programming, where it's like, yes, I got a different error message, and that's progress. I was hoping, like, I'm rooting for it, to be very clear. I think it's amazing.
Yeah, same here.
I just didn't think they would be there already, like third time to charm. I guess.
Honestly, I thought Starship was a PR stunt where they're just going to keep shooting these up. Oh no, we're fine. We're not there yet. And like suddenly they got into space. I'm almost.
It's amazing, and that's a great piece of news to share with me right from the kickoff. Yeah. Thanks, Heine.
There you go. Let's get started though, because I know we start talking space. We're both fans. We will never stop. Let's dig into the news. Bitcoin is at an all-time high. Bitcoin reaches a new all-time high, soaring to $72,700. The approval of the Bitcoin ETF has contributed to record-breaking prices. The ETF means that anyone who has access to buying listed stock can buy Bitcoins. So, Thijs, did you make a shitload of money here?
I did not. I really feel, and I do feel like, shit, did I miss out now? Like, I remember I had a stock ticker thing on my MacBook, and this must have been 2014, 2015. I remember it passed $300 per Bitcoin. And I was thinking at that time, I missed it. I missed the boat, because I was looking at it as like a fun thing, right? This is like, if I buy a Bitcoin, it's just this.
It's a tech gimmick.
It's a gimmick, like it's a thing. And I was thinking at that point, at that time, I was thinking like, okay, $300 is a lot to pay for a gimmick. Like, I didn't have a lot of money, and like, hey, it's out of my price range now. I missed it. Plus, it's gonna implode, and like 300 is a crazy price. 300. What's the price now? $72,000.
$72,000.
Yeah,
$72,000.
So I guess the answer is I missed out big time. I do not own any Bitcoin, and I just feel like I do feel like I missed out. How about you? Do you have any?
I'm afraid I'm in the same boat, but I didn't have a stock ticker. I followed it, but I never really got it.
Yeah, no, I was in on it early. Like, I followed it early. I was really excited about it. I thought it was super interesting, this whole thing about like virtual money, and that computers were making this money, and decentralization. Like, I thought it was all very exciting. I just didn't like get in on it to actually buy it. And yeah, oh my God, imagine having bought a couple of Bitcoins.
And we'll buy any stupid gimmick for $300 that's worthless 3 months later, but we didn't buy this.
Yeah,
it's not good.
Don't take financial advice from me. That's one thing.
No, this is not a financial podcast. So, CoinShares International reports unprecedented inflows into cryptocurrency products, signaling strong investor interest. So, the next thing here is crypto coming back. We're definitely in a cold crypto winter right now. So, is it coming back?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say, of course, it's coming back, because it's been coming back,
Okay, it's a zero.
10, 20 times now, right? We know it's going in and out of these winters and very hot summers, and it will do that many times from now on. Again, it'll go up and down. A book recommendation, I was reading Chris Dixon, Read, Write, Own. He does a great job at like going through crypto, and he's very long on crypto. He's been in it for many years. He's from Andreessen Horowitz and other things. I think that's a great primer if you want to understand crypto from a broader perspective, right? It's much broader.
What's it called again?
Bitcoin and The book is called Read, Write, Own.
Okay.
And it's available as audiobook, or if you don't, there's plenty of like YouTube stuff where you can just watch a video, an hour of him talking about the book and kind of giving you the skinny on
That's
it.
cool.
So you can do that. Definitely recommend that. Also, if you're considering like, is this a field I should go into as an entrepreneur? He does a really good job at like explaining it. Obviously, he's super pro. He's
But he's
bullish on crypto, and he's very smart. I think what they're still struggling with when I look at it, I still lack the use case. Like I still don't
Yeah.
see that product that really makes a difference, that really impacts people. And when we talk about AI as the new hot thing, well, there's actually a product out there that suddenly changed the world. It suddenly made 100 million people plus say, "Oh my God, what is this? I can actually use this in my everyday life. I can make my job better, easier, safer, whatever." And I don't have that yet with crypto. And
No,
so
and,
you
and
got to
maybe there.
show that to me
Yeah.
before I become bullish on it.
Yeah, and maybe there are two leagues here, meaning Bitcoin is one thing and everything else is something else. That's sort of my impression right now, that Bitcoin is now seen as some kind of goldish storage thing, which might keep going or staying until it collapses, if it collapses. Whereas the other things are, people are more, no, I don't believe in this.
Yeah, the different two different buckets. I guess my problem is that I kind of see it reverse. Like I'm skeptical on Bitcoin because I see it as so speculative, and I really have a hard, like they really need to solve some really hard problems around energy and around speed of transactions before I can see it being used as anything other than just a store of value.
But if we trade gold ties, it's not going to be a good speed of transaction, is it?
No, no, that's true. It's just if you want to get it to that point where it's like, oh, I actually use this for daily transactions. I just don't see that happening without some major breakthroughs in how they do it, right? Whereas on the other hand, all the other stuff like Ethereum, building apps on blockchains, and going into this age we now have of like there's going to be disinformation. How do you know where things come from? Well, you need a trail, you need an audit trail, and like blockchains are amazing for that. And I can see a lot of things that would be amazing for blockchains, but I still don't have that in front of me, right? I haven't seen it yet.
No, that's the thing. We need to find the use cases, and with crypto, we have one of the reasons why there's a really cold winter is obviously there's been so many scams and like bad.
Have you ever considered going into crypto? Like, have you ever considered going into crypto, building something or investing in it?
Oh, there are ideas, like you say, traceability for art and those things. I love that thing. I think it's amazing. The closest I come to really doing anything active is I called my broker. It sounds like an American movie. I called my broker one day and said, "Hey, should we put 2% into crypto?" And he just came back with a hard no. And that was the end of that discussion.
I think if you ask...
Thijs.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm going to move on here. So we have many things to cover. So next story. The House passed a bill to ban TikTok in the US. The House voted in favor of a bill that would force TikTok's Chinese parent company, ByteDance, to sell the app or face a ban in the US. President Biden has indicated support for the bill, and it received wide bipartisan support in the House, which is rare in the US, I will say that. The claim is that TikTok presents a national security concern due to China's law requiring companies to share data with the government upon request. So what do you say about that, Thijs?
Ooh. Well, yeah, I'm really conflicted about this one. First of all, I think you need to kind of distinguish. There's a lot of talk about social media. What does social media do to young people, and how we dealing with social media? I think that's like one big debate where you can talk about Meta and X and all the social media companies. And then you have a separate one, which is TikTok, where like the debate there is not necessarily what harmful things are they just doing to teens. It's because it's owned. They believe that there's a very strong link to the Chinese Communist
This is
Party,
not about consumer protection, or
well,
not.
It's about political protection, right? It's about that there's a worry that there's going to be propaganda, and that's where and also to be clear, they're not they are either banning it, but they are using that as a stick where they say you got to divest it to U.S. ownership, right? So the world that they're aiming for is not a world without TikTok; it's just an American TikTok. Yeah. And I think that's really important. I looked at this and I was actually I'm a bit surprised at this debate. To me, this thing comes from a surprising position of what I see as like it's a surprising inferiority complex, I think, in the sense that are you really that worried about Chinese propaganda corrupting your society?
Okay,
like,
Can I stop you there? Like, think
yeah,
about
sure.
this, Thijs. Let's say you have 170 million users in the US, and then you have a not necessarily a hostile, but a competitive foreign force just putting their finger slightly on the weight with what communication. It's like being in every
Yeah,
single television in the US.
yeah.
Does that not matter?
Well, I think it matters, but I think it's a weird way to counter it by banning it when you're in the country of free speech. Again, and this is back to the like my consideration here is about I'm surprised that they're not more confident about their own narrative. They've been so
Yeah,
confident
that's true.
about their own narrative for decades and centuries, right? That's why the US has so much soft power.
It is
Like
the
we
best,
watch their
best
movies.
economy in the
It's
world.
the
Yeah,
best. They have the innovation and they have the soft power. They have all the movies that we're watching, all the TV shows. I grew up on this
it's
thing, right? We
incredible.
drank the Kool-Aid and
Yeah,
we think it's great. And I'm just a bit surprised that they feel so threatened.
yeah.
If I want to,
It is some kind of signal of weakness, right?
right, let's bring it back to us for a
A little
moment,
bit.
right? Remember when in Vivino, whenever we talked about the Vivino rating, right? When
Yeah.
we were through periods of like things are going great, we're confident about what we're doing. When we were talking about how does the world use the Vivino rating, should we charge them for doing it? Should we sue them because somebody is using the Vivino rating, like they're taking our IP? No, we would look at it and say, no, this is just branding for us. Like if people want to use the
Yeah.
Vivino rating, do that, right? That's great. And then when we went through periods where we were less confident, that's when we started to pull back and say, oh, no, this is our IP. They can't steal it. They can't misuse it and so on. We should not allow them to do this. And
And also always
there's a
saying
parallel
we have
here.
so much more to offer, right? Yeah.
Exactly. Like we're not worried about that, right? It's just good that you keep talking about the rating because like that just reflects well on us. And I'm just surprised that you now have a U.S. society which is so much in the defensive that they're saying the best way to counter Chinese propaganda is to ban it. Like I can understand it. You
That
can go down that route. It's just a very defensive way of doing things.
Yeah, I agree. It feels a little bit weak. I mean, come on, the
Yeah.
U.S., the biggest economy, the greatest
Yeah.
country ever. I mean, they can handle this. Oh,
Are you
so
really
Thijs,
that worried about it? So, anyways, so I'm just surprised that
yeah.
the kind of the U.S. narrative is not stronger. Apparently,
Okay, so the legislation is not done yet. It has to go through Senate too, and we'll see how that goes. TikTok prompted users to contact their congressional representative in opposition to the ban, leading to an influx of calls to U.S. politicians. And we are going to the next story. OpenAI responds to Elon Musk suing OpenAI. OpenAI has strongly refuted Elon Musk's lawsuit against the company in a legal filing. OpenAI describes Musk's claim as frivolous and intended solely to advance his own commercial interests. Notably, OpenAI denies that it ever broke what Musk refers to as a founding agreement, basically saying there is no such contract. I mean, that's a problem. There is also an email thread where Elon Musk agrees to the change in strategy. So this is all a little bit weird. Is this Elon being Elon again, or what's happening here?
oh, for sure, there are like a billion personal conflicts here in terms of his own AI software, and probably also a lot of grievances about the fact that he was an early investor and.
Yeah.
And all that, right? I think there are two aspects of this. One is this about nonprofit for-profit structure that they've been doing, and Elon Musk is kind of pushing back on that and saying
core.
that you're now a for-profit
He calls
organization.
it closed AI.
Yeah, but so like that whole thing, I think that's very complicated, and I don't think I have the legal chops to kind of comment on that. I think for me, the other interesting thing is the whole open source, closed source aspect of this. That Musk is also saying that in this founding agreement, right, it had to be open source, and then it's now closed sourced, and also it's controlled by Microsoft, as was very apparent in the recent all the upheaval with the board members and so on. Right, it's Microsoft is calling the shots on this, so it's closed sourced and it's owned by Microsoft, and that was exactly what they were trying to not achieve.
Yeah, they were trying to
by
avoid
doing
it, build a company that wasn't owned by a big corporation.
Right, and I think that again, as an entrepreneur, as a builder, it's interesting to think about AI in terms of open source and closed source, and what kind of opportunities does that give you? Because like clearly, it gives a lot of opportunities if these models are open source, if they're available. On the other hand, maybe there's a level of innovation that we simply can't get unless there are some closed source models. So I think
Just
that's
funding. You might not get the same funding, right?
exactly, and that's why they did the for profit, right? It was like, we need a massive amount of funding to succeed with our mission, so we'll make a subsidiary which is for profit. But I think as a builder, it's just super interesting to look at these open source models and see what they can do, and I just hope that the innovation continues at this pace also for the open models.
I think the answer from OpenAI is pretty clear with 2 points. You talk about a founding agreement that we agreed on. That contract doesn't exist. Number 2, when we changed strategy, you're right, we did change strategy. You were on the thread and you said yes. So that's the core of it. Okay, cool. With that, I mean, Thijs and I could talk about Elon for years, but we have very mixed emotions. I think we probably agree he's one of the greatest entrepreneurs ever. At the same time, it's a complicated thing. There are many things I don't like that he does, but he is a fantastic entrepreneur. So in related news, Elon Musk's AI Grok was made open source this week. So I'm not sure exactly what that means, but it's probably part of this feud here. Anyway, we're going to move on here, guys.
That's definitely, Grok is definitely Elon being Elon and wanting to make a provocative chatbot and all these, let's see.
I think Elon's best when he owns everything and controls everything. That's his thing. And fine, it looks like it's working, at least for Tesla and SpaceX.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool. Moving on to the next one. EU passes bill to restrict AI. European lawmakers have passed the world's first comprehensive AI law, introducing broad rules for AI development and use. So before we get into details here, Thijs, what do you think about this overall? Should we be regulating this?
I think for sure there should be regulation, just like there should be regulation on so many other important areas, tech or not tech. I don't think anyone knows whether they got this right, including themselves. And I think speculating on it at this point is I think it's a bit of a waste of time. Like, you have to see what this actually means in terms of lawsuits and like what is it, just like the GDPR, was that the right way to go about it? Well, we'll see as the law gets enacted and rolled out.
Yeah. Let me dig in a little bit, tell you a little bit more about this. First of all, I'm quite impressed that they moved this fast. So the Act adopts a risk-based approach, categorizing AI application into different risk levels. Low-risk AI systems such as content recommendation, algorithms, and spam filter will face less scrutiny. High-risk AI applications like medical devices and critical infrastructure have stricter requirements, including using high-quality data and providing clear user information. Also, certain things are totally banned. Systems like social scoring system, predictive policing, emotion recognition systems will be banned in schools and workplaces. I love predictive policing. Isn't that Minority Reports?
It's totally Minority Report, and it's banned. So you can't do that, Heine. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's banned. So don't do that. Don't do Minority Report.
You can't be Tom Cruise.
What do you think about what you see here?
Well, again, I think it makes sense, especially in terms of like, what can you do in public places, or what can you do in places where people are there, not voluntarily. Like, you have to be at school, you have to be at your workplace. What can you do there in terms of monitoring and so on? I think this is healthy, but it needs to meet reality, right? We need to have some lawsuits. We need to have some actual cases where we can see, okay, totally, that was where the line was. And a lot of times with these huge frameworks, as a politician, I don't think necessarily exactly where that line is going to be. You have an intention, and you word the law, and it's a huge mix-up of all kinds of interests, and then it's going to go out there and meet reality. I think I saw a lot of pushback on this, of like, oh, you shouldn't do this before you're sure, you should let it mature and so on. I don't know. When we're entrepreneurs, we always talk about, you should try to, get an early version out and see what it is.
Yeah,
I think you can argue the same thing with these kind of legislations.
Like, let's see crimes, how this maybe is. You should be careful.
No, well, but that's not the case here, right? No, not at all, right? And the risk is that you slow down innovation. I don't think that's a big cost to pay on this in this area. I think that's fine.
I think we'll dig into that at some point, Thijs, because why is US winning all these big consumer products? Could that be the reason? But we're not going to go to that. That's for a future episode. And the interesting part is also is the world going to follow? Is US going to follow? Is California going to follow? Is Asia going to follow? And so on and so forth. Okay, Before we bring on the guest and go on a short break, we're going to get some short news. Reddit is planning to raise 748 million in their IPO and have a valuation of 5.4 billion. Not too bad. The Digital Marketing Act, or the DMA, means big changes for Apple and especially the App Store. 30% charge on everything is over, and Apple is trying to find a balance in the pricing that regulators are happy with. Meanwhile, previously banned Epic Games is back in the App Store after being blocked by Apple. And Stripe continues its growth, reaching over, hold on here, $1 trillion in payments in 2023. Yes, that is 1,000 billion. So, Ty, you get to comment on one of these because these are the short news. Anything you want to comment on here?
I think the DMA, again, from an entrepreneurial perspective, is interesting. It targets,
Totally.
like, it's big and complex, just like the AI stuff, but it targets these huge companies, right? These kind of these
we need
gatekeepers.
regulation. Yeah.
However,
I
I think
weaker.
from
I'm sorry, we just have to.
yes, exactly, and that's why I think it's interesting from an entrepreneurial perspective, right? Because it's supposed to spur some competition. It's supposed to open some doors, and alternative ways to get on the iPhone. Maybe there are some things that in time that you can't do on the iPhone today that maybe you can do in 6 months, 12 months. I think this is an area, as an entrepreneur, this is an area to follow and try to see, are there any opportunities that are opening up? Something we could do on the iPhone that we used to not be able to do. Obviously, the huge thing would be if they at some point get actually the fee down, so we don't have to pay 15
and
or 30%.
It will come down. It's coming down already.
It will come down, right? So that's going to open up new business opportunities as well. So I think from an entrepreneurial perspective, I think the DMA is interesting to follow, just like see what's going on, what are the opportunities that are opening up, because it's not just about, oh, what can Meta no longer do? What can Google no longer do? It's about what doors does that open for you?
Yeah, I agree. So it could spur innovation too. Cool. We are going on a short break. When we come back, we'll have our guest on, so stay tuned. We are back. Today's guest is Joachim Brockmann, co-founder and CEO of Pluto Markets, an app for stock trading focusing on the European market. Welcome to the show, Joachim.
Thank you, Heini.
So what we're going to talk about today is your experience with Y Combinator. I would say Y Combinator is the best known and most prestigious startup accelerator in the world. Some of the startups that have been through there are Stripe, Airbnb, and Dropbox. I would say nobody else has a list of startups like Y Combinator. It is just one of the best ways to get a startup started and, crucially, to raise money. Obviously, very, very hard to get in, but amazing if you get there. So what we're going to talk about today is what happens if you don't raise money after Y Combinator. So welcome, Joachim. Let's go to the beginning. How did you get into Y Combinator?
Yeah, so we founded Pluto in 2021. And basically, when I say founded, it means put together a pitch deck and then started circulating around with various investors. And before we talked to many investors, the application deadline was approaching for Y Combinator, so we applied. Surprisingly, we got called in for an interview, and bang, there we were getting in. The interesting part about what we're building, which is the European super investment app, is that it has a very, very long time to market, right? So typically 2, 3, 4 years. So we got in incredibly excited, but we were very far from market, both when we entered and when we exited Y Combinator.
What was the difference from when you got there till when you exited? There's a pitch day in the end, right? How far were you at pitch day, and how far had you gotten?
Well, so the truth is we didn't have much when we got in, and we had marginally more when we exited again. So when we got in, we probably were 2.5 years away from market. When we got out, we probably had 2 years and a quarter to market, right? Because it requires.
So why the hell did you get in then?
Well, because they believed in us and the team. That's what they do. They bet on traction or teams, right?
Okay.
But what I hadn't really thought about is that Y Combinator is an accelerator. And I never really thought about what that word actually means. But in hindsight, I know that it means that you get in with very little and you typically get out with significantly more. So when we were pitching at Demo Day, which is this massive show, especially when taking part of YC, was that we didn't really have much, right? And we also just raised money 6 months prior, so we didn't really feel the urgency. So that wasn't a problem as such. We were struggling to raise and we didn't really need the money, which was demotivating. But it was actually one thing that we were questions about later on, why we didn't raise out of YC. And the truth is it was a combination that we didn't have much and we didn't really need the cash.
Yeah, of course.
So was it a bad?
But if
Was
you
Y
go ahead.
Combinator a bad fit for you guys at that stage? Do you regret it, or was it a good experience?
No, I think it was a life-changing experience as a founder. So I consider myself to be a repeat founder. Amazing experience. You learn from the best, and you're part of the kind of the mentor program for forever. I would say if you have the privilege to be able to pick when you get admitted, yes, I would have liked to be admitted later on. But I don't think
Okay.
that's a choice that many people face. So in
Mm,
hindsight, I would have done the same.
yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
So one of the challenges here, I guess, is that when someone goes through Y Combinator, you get this incredible stamp of approval, which means that there's a lot of investors that are available, which then means that, okay, you had all these investors lined up because YC lined them up for you. Then you come out and you didn't get investment. Then people say, what the heck happened? Did you feel that?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. And in the beginning, it was a little bit shocking, right? Because you believe that now you're just flying high, you're a YC alum, and then all of a sudden it seems like it's sort of backfiring for at least for a little while. So I think if you put yourself in a position where you should have been able to generate traction and you don't, it's very obvious to the world that things are not going well. Like it's not like working in stealth where you can just brush everything under the carpet, right? Here it's out in the open.
Oh,
You're exposing yourself to the world. And I think we had a credible story as to why we didn't have much traction when we got out because we still were 2 years away from regulatory approvals. But I really had to iterate on that story to make sure that investors weren't scared when talking to us because we didn't get those big checks out of YC.
So what's your advice on this? Is that wait? Because I guess the other problem here is that who are you being compared to? Maybe you were doing fine, but you just compared to people that were in market and doing stuff, right?
Yeah, definitely. I think you should always take the opportunity if you get it. I would say it's a trade-off, right? Because in hindsight, we would have benefited the most from the program if we had entered now, pretty much, right?
Yeah.
With the regulatory approval, with a product that's very close to market. But then the counter problem is that YC tends to get in at a very low valuation for the first part of the investment. So you also don't want to get in after having raised significant amounts of money. So I think YC is tailored very well towards non-regulated businesses, SaaS, B2B products where basically you can put together an MVP and then you can get the first paying customer, right? But it's not tailored well for regulated industries such as ourselves. They do fund a bit of, space ships and very exotic stuff, but the horizon is different and the program isn't really tailored towards demo day. It's more the mentoring along the journey.
Okay.
But apparently they liked the team so much that they were willing to say, okay, this is still 2.5 years away from regulatory approval and we'll still take you in, because it does seem like a bit of a mismatch to where they can provide value. I understand that it's a great experience for you and it's an amazing experience to be part of, but it seems from Y Combinator's perspective it's not a perfect match.
Yeah, and to be frank, I'm not sure either we as founders or YC knew exactly what we were signing up for, because we've been living in the dream that we would get the regulatory approval historically fast, and then we would be able to launch a product within 12 months.
Of
But
course.
things haven't
Then
turned out
reality
that
hits.
way, right? Then reality hits, and here we are 2 years later, and we just got the regulatory approvals.
Oh,
So
congratulations.
Thank you. So I think we were also selling the story, right? That we will be able to launch in 9 months,
course.
and they probably bought a bit into it with a bit of hesitation.
That's what we do.
Exactly. So we were fundraising, right? So we were selling,
Yeah.
but we're still getting tremendous value out of it. I mean, we have incredible mentorship from people who have built massive neobanks at YC. Tom Blomfield from Monzo is one of our mentors to this day. I speak to him on a regular basis, right? So we still get the value out of it, but I would say the sort of build up towards demo day wasn't really where we could reap the fruits.
No. So can I just want to, I'm going to see if I can be a little bit harsh. I understand you got a really good educational experience out of it and so on, which is fantastic. But there is a risk when you go on these big stages and don't come out as people expect, that it sort of becomes a kiss of death. Were you close to dying at any point because of this or for any reason?
I think the answer is no. We were never close to dying, but we could have been close to dying. So the funny thing is, when we got into YC, that's when the hype is probably at the peak. Right? Everyone just heard that you got into YC. It's not really announced yet. People feel like they're dealing with an unpolished diamond. So that's when we got a lot of offers. And we were, in hindsight, very smart to take some of those money because we knew that demo day was a risk for us. Although we were advised to don't take the money because in 5 months you're going to have a valuation that's 3x what it is right now. But we took some of
Good
those
call.
money, and that's what bridged us to where we are today, where we've raised more money, achieved the regulatory approvals, and de-risked the case quite a bit. So in hindsight, if we had relied on some of the conventional knowledge, we would have been dead today. We took a bit of war chest when the market was hot and the money was at the table. Otherwise, it could have been quite fatal.
Yeah, good
Can you
call.
speak a bit about like the motivation on your team going through this? I imagine that you go through this kind of downer. On the other side of Y Combinator, you don't get that money, and you have to constantly counter these stories of like, no, we are successful. It's just that this wasn't like it. In my experience, that can be a real downer for a team, especially when
it's
you've
tough.
just gone through a high. Right, when you've just like, yes, we're on Y Combinator, it's the greatest thing, and so on, and then you go through this. So how did you manage that? Was it tough on the team?
Yeah, it was tough because I mean, you feel like you're looking into the stars when you get admitted. Everyone was super excited. That was around the time when we started hiring the first people. So obviously they
Mm-hmm.
bought into a journey that ended up being very
Yes.
differently and taking
Yes.
way longer than it ended up doing. So we actually had, a few of our team members have a burnout. We were working out of my co-founder's basement at the time, so the working environment was pretty rough as well during winter here in Denmark where we're based. So basically, we
a
had to do an entire
basement, a
reset. It was my
basement in Denmark
co-founder.
in winter. That's not nice.
Yeah, that's no fun. There's no fun.
Exactly. We had a gas burner that was making a ton of noise, and it was a bit smelly. Probably not the healthiest environment.
Oh, rough. Yeah, so we don't pitch startups here, but Joachim, Pluto, give us 2 seconds on it and tell us, you just raised a lot of money. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So what we're building is a super investment app that goes beyond stocks and ETFs. We want to be able to launch any product in the future, so you have a whole catalog of assets that we can give ordinary people access to. And
Oh,
the geographical focus is all the markets in Europe that don't have the euro. Because what we learned is that the infrastructure layer is completely broken there. So that's actually where we spend our time building a
that's
new layer
interesting.
of financial infrastructure that can bring modern products to the consumers in the 100 million for the 100 million people that live in countries without the euro.
Amazing. And funding,
Nice.
you just raised some money, right?
Yeah, we just closed a $2.6 million round on the back of the regulatory approvals, which is going to enable us to launch across the first countries and hopefully get some traction finally.
Yeah, get some traction 3 years after you were on Y Combinator. Thank you, Joachim. You're staying on for the next section. And when we get back, we'll have some interesting and spicy questions from the community. Okay, we are back with the questions and community part. And I have 2 questions we're going to cover today. First one is, how many chances is Henrik Fisker going to get? Background: Henrik Fisker is a Danish-born car designer and entrepreneur based in California. Very few people get to found a car company, but Henrik Fisker is on his second. The first one failed, and he's now on his second. Now the news this week is that his second one is about to go bankrupt. So the question is, how many chances should Henrik Fisker get?
Well, as a founder, I want people
As many,
to take
as many as he needs.
more than one chance, and now he's got two, so maybe three. I don't know. I think it's just tough for him, right? I mean, he hit the market right at the worst possible time, launching this product. And with a car company, like you have to build up all this infrastructure, and it's like once you're in it, like you're jumping the cliff, right? And suddenly the chasm just becomes wider, like the market under you changes, and it's really hard when you're then midair. Like you can't just, what are you going to do? So he'll need to find some more money, or do a restructuring, which is probably what he's going to do. It's tough. On the other hand, that said, it doesn't seem like the product is getting great reviews. Doesn't seem like they've hit the right thing. So yeah, sometimes you fail. That's tough.
What do you say, Joachim?
Yeah, I agree. I think it's kind of a double whammy, right? Because one, the funding market is a lot tougher than when he started building the business, and two, there's been a massive margin compression across the EV sector with increased competition from the Chinese manufacturers, and it takes a 10x better product to switch, and you already have very, very competitive products in the market. Like I drive a Tesla myself, right? I'm a huge fan, so it's going to be hard to find an angle in that space.
Yeah, I agree. I think
Yeah, for
he
sure.
hit the funding market really, really well as he launched with a SPAC and raised a lot of money. And then when the product came to market, suddenly the competitors were there too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Obviously, we are pro founders getting as many chances as they need. But I picked this question because it is quite unique. I mean, we have a few people that founded car companies. I have a Lego DeLorean right on the shelf over here. DeLorean was a legendary founder too, really committed to his startup, so committed he ended up doing a Coke deal to get funding, which was not a good idea. They were FBI people that actually he did the Coke deal with, and he got arrested. So do everything to get funding, but probably not a Coke deal. So it's quite a unique thing. It's the only person I know that has founded. Well, maybe Ford did that with some investors and then launched again later. But it's quite unique.
Yeah, and I think, also at this moment in time, I feel like it's a lot tougher to raise funding in the public markets than for as a private company. I feel
Yeah.
like the SPAC days were different, but typically it is tough, right? Because you have all the history out there, and it's a completely different way of raising capital.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Let's move on. So then we have a bigger, more sort of philosophical question here, which I'm sure we can spend some time on. So, is being a startup founder for everybody?
No, definitely not.
For sure not.
And
Let's hear it.
How
Why
do
is that?
how do you figure it out though? How do you figure out whether you're a startup founder other than just like don't you just need to try it?
Yeah, I would say the one thing that I really learned throughout my two startups is that you got to be able to sell, right? If you can't sell, you
Totally.
can't be a venture-backed founder at least, because you're selling every day. Even when it's going bad, you wake up in the morning, you have to put a smile on your face, and you have to sell the crap out of it, right? So if you suck at sales, you probably shouldn't be a VC-backed founder at least.
Yeah, no.
And
And I
the
think
second
and I
thing
think that's oh sorry, go ahead. Yeah, second thing.
I would say the other thing is risk appetite, right? So when I look back at my career, I've always been either a founder or a trader. And it's hard to find other career paths where there is more risk. So I just know I thrive when taking massive risk, but I know it's not for everyone.
Yeah. And I think one thing that kind of combines those two is just this massive optimism. Like, in order for you to get up every morning and be able to be selling and to really believing, despite all the things that are not working and is still not working, and like, oh my god, and just keep on fighting is just the optimism. You have to have that. If you don't have that as a part of your personality trait, you're not going to succeed. Sorry.
Just to comment on the selling thing, you said selling to VCs. Like I had one of my videos where I talked about this, where we just learn to sell, and the reason is not strictly VCs; it's your employees, obviously your customers. It's everyone around you. You have to sell to all the time, and this can be challenging for very sort of engineering heavy industries, right?
Yes, and I would say selling is also about crafting a story, right?
Yeah.
So I think especially when hiring people that are born, in the 19s or in the 90s or even later, I think for that generation the vision matters more than ever, right? So they're typically buying into a journey and a vision, and if you as a founder suck at articulating that, it's really going to be an uphill battle for you.
Yeah. I always say that you have to craft a story, but you also have to craft a story that you can tell and others can repeat it. Just make it simple and nice. So what is Joachim doing? Oh, he's doing this. I get it. So your mom will tell somebody else. It really, really matters when it comes to investors, employees, everyone around you.
Yeah, YC actually has a very interesting saying on this. They say that the main reason why founders get rejected on investor calls is because the investor can't go and tell their team what the company does,
No.
right? So everyone is trying to add a lot of fancy words, but at the end of the day, it's about being able to communicate what your company does and why they're solving a problem.
Yeah. So you talk to one VC and she turns around and talks to all the other partners. And if she cannot articulate that story, she's not going to sell it to the other partners at the VC.
Exactly. I think it's a typical way of making sure people understand something is to explain it back to you, right? So when I explain something on the board right out here at the office, and everyone is like, "Yeah, we get it," I'm like, "Great, now you explain it to me," and then 1 out of 2 times you realize that there's still quite a few knowledge gaps.
Yeah. Okay, last comments on this, Thijs, anything?
No, I'm sorry, Heine. I lost the last 3 minutes of audio. I think as soon as you started talking
damn.
after,
This was
after
amazing,
I said
Thijs, I will say that.
Yeah, it looked amazing. I could see your video, and you were all super excited, but I had no idea what was going on.
Yeah. No, just I want to say one last thing on this is like the slogan for like raw startup and is sort of go build something, and I really believe that everyone should be building something, but it's just different what it should be. Doing a venture-backed startup is bloody elite sports. It is not for everybody. That is my take on it, honestly. But I really believe everyone should be building something.
I completely agree, and I think that's something each and everyone need to figure out what is for them, right? Because you can be very happy by painting a picture. That can be building something for yourself.
Yeah.
But I agree, it's elite sports, right? And it's not for everyone.
No. Cool. We are going to move on here, unless Thijs has a comment. I don't think he does. We're going to move on here. So now we're going to talk about the podcast. I've committed to being transparent about this podcast, that we did a test episode before, and then sharing with everyone here how we are doing. So, and before that, I want to give a thank you, because doing something like this is quite a lot of work. I've been thinking about it for a very long time and working on it for also some time now, and have incredible support both from you guys here, from family and friends. But I want to name specifically my daughter Barbara. She loves podcasts, and she's been so incredible at giving me feedback and supporting me. And she lives in San Francisco. She is a graduate in PR and communications in San Francisco, and works for a local PR company called Breakaway Communications. And just really appreciate her and having helped me getting this, because motivation really matters too. And she's really encouraged me to do this. So thank you very much, Barbara. I love you very much. So I always get a little bit emotional when I talk about my kids. Sorry. Yeah, you can comment on that, but you don't have to. So, anyways, I have committed to.
I
10
don't get
episodes
emotional
of
when
this.
I talk about your
go
kids, so I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, we love you, Barbara.
Good. It's much easier for you. Cool. Thank you. So, anyway, I have committed to doing 10 episodes of this, and I didn't want to commit too much, saying I want 10,000 listeners. But I've said I want a trajectory towards 10,000 listeners. So at least I got to see some growth, because there's so much work in this that if it doesn't go in that direction, I don't want to keep doing it. But also, I love doing this. So before we get to the numbers, the first episode I did a couple of weeks ago, I didn't tell anyone about it. So I did it with Hassan. I did not have a guest on, just a co-host. So Joachim, you're the first guest here ever. And then I put it on the channel so I can open up the channels for the proper release. And then I put it on YouTube, where I have a following already with over 80,000 followers. So, but the numbers are in now. We are, it's 2 weeks ago since we did that. And I put this in the script, and you might have seen it. But if you haven't seen it, how many downloads, views do you think we got? Only if you haven't seen it.
I didn't see it. Did you get 1,000?
Okay.
Was that too optimistic?
Joachim, did you see it? You saw it.
I think I have a number in my mind, and I think it might be because I saw it, but I'm not sure.
That's okay.
But I would...
Okay, let's go there. But thanks, good guest. So I got 508 downloads of the first episode, which I think is good. Like, actually quite good, considering I didn't tell anyone. But the reason for that number is because YouTube is so strong already, right? So 85% of that came from YouTube. On the other big platforms, Spotify and Apple, obviously I didn't tell anyone. I just sent it to a few friends and family. So they're the ones that downloaded it. So 508 is the number. I think it's fine. What do you think?
I think it's cool. I mean, it's half of what I thought you should be at, but I accept it. You passed.
That's usually how we do it, Thijs.
Yeah. Yes,
Every time I do something, that's where we end up.
Yeah.
What do you think, Jorgen?
No.
Well, relative to what? What is your usual traction on a YouTube video for comparison?
So this is so different because it's a totally different channel, right? So we can't compare it to that. A YouTube video on YouTube only will get 1,000, 2,000 within the first week or so, maybe 1,000 the first day, and then it depends on how it works. So this is just totally a different format. But YouTube is saying they're betting on podcasts and saying that they will push podcasts. So we'll see how that goes. So we're starting from scratch here, honestly.
Nice. And how does that
But you
how
have
does
the
that
advantage.
develop
You
over
have
time?
the advantage that because you're speaking to the same type of audience, right? We're targeting the same kind of people, I guess.
Totally. Then I need to move that audience over to the other platforms or have them listen to podcasts on YouTube. So I think that's one of the questions. But so YouTube algorithm is my impression right now is not good at pushing these long formats yet. I think that's the conclusion from the first couple of weeks here. Although they say they've built a special feature, upload podcasts, so it goes in a different lane than everything else. It still isn't there yet. So yes, the idea is to move some of those people over to the other platforms.
Nice.
It's interesting how all these formats are now starting to diverge, right? Because I think YouTube is also betting on shorts. Like the latest metric I saw from Instagram a year back was that the Reels was the fastest growing content category ever, right? So it seems like mid-length content is now slowly getting replaced by ultra short form or very long form content.
It's super weird. It's super weird. I totally agree. But that is exactly what's happening. So Google has shut down their Google podcast and is moving that over to YouTube and saying, or YouTube Music, that's going to be their podcast platform. We'll see how that goes. Okay, so question for you here. So now you know that number. What's going to happen next? Because we're going to launch this Friday, and I'm going to put it on LinkedIn, all my channels. What's going to happen on the first episode, and what's going to happen after that?
From a viewer point of view?
Yeah.
It's going to go up.
Well, yeah, up and to the right, of course. But it's going to be what I'm curious about is like the format. How are you going to learn? How are we going to learn? What's the feedback going to be? What changes needs to be done, right?
Totally.
For this to take off. That to me is super interesting.
I mean, we're building a product here, right? This is why I want to talk a little bit. We're building a product here. I need to improve it every single week, and that's what I hope to do. And that's also why I'm excited about this, right? Is just to keep improving it.
So if you're listening to this, definitely leave a comment and let us know.
100%. Tell us, don't bring these guests again ever, or whatever, or throw out
change
the host.
Just change the host. That
would shut it down. Shut it down.
So how are you going to decide on the different topics from episode to episode? Is that going to be community driven? Is it going to be like you deciding, or how does that going to develop?
Yeah, so it's very news driven. So did you hear the full episode while you were in the waiting room?
No, I couldn't.
Okay. So the first segment here is news. So we go through the news there. And I've built this small engine that takes RSS news and I go through them really, really quickly, actually every single day. And then I boil it down into what I think are the most important news relevant for founders. And that's sort of how I do it. And then the idea with the middle section is not for the guests to come on and tell a life story, but rather tell a story. So when we brought you on here was because you had a specific story about Y Combinator. So I'd rather tell stories we can learn from than long life stories. That's sort of the format I've picked for this.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense.
Nice.
Cool. I think we have come to the end. So thank you very much, Thijs and Joachim.
Well, thank you.
Please make sure you follow and subscribe. Thank you. Please make sure you follow and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. And please do leave a review or rating. It really helps. Also, make sure you check out the raw startup videos on YouTube. There's a lot of videos about building a startup. This has been Founders Weekly. Now stop listening and go build something.